Welcome to the Morning Drive, a video edition. I want you to think about something for just a moment. I want you to think about, as Christians, the things that we have to fight against. Whether we're fighting against immorality in the world, whether we're fighting against culture as a whole, whether we're fighting against Hollywood or politics, or maybe we're fighting against the teachings that some people do that aren't biblical but are done in the name of Christ. There are a lot of battles that we fight. But the truth is, that's not the hardest and most difficult battle that we fight. I want to read to you from another minister, someone who wrote part of the New Testament, the Apostle Paul. Now, I want you to listen to how he describes what I think is his greatest battle. I'm going to be reading from the book of Romans, and I'm going to be reading from chapter 7. And I'm just going to begin in verse 21. You can actually go back up to about verse 13 and get more of the context, but I just want to pick up with verse 21 because I think it kind of illustrates what we're talking about. So I find it to be a law that when I want to do right, evil lies close at hand. For I delight in the law of God in my inner being, but I see in my members another law waging war against the law of my mind and making me captive to the law of sin that dwells in my members. Wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? You see, Paul's dilemma, Paul's battle is, even though he fights against false doctrine, even though he stands for what's right in the world, his struggle right here, and I think the big struggle that he deals with, is the battle against himself. I've said it, I've heard others say it, God is in a battle with me, for me. And I have to choose whose side I'm going to fight on. Am I choosing to fight with me against God? Or am I going to choose to fight with God against me? See, in Romans chapter 6, verses 3 through 6, that great passage on baptism, one of the things that is talking about is how we die to self, we die to sin, and once we are dead, we are buried with Christ, and we rise again with Him to a new life. I'm dead to myself. I die to my sin. Paul says it this way in Galatians 2 and verse 20, I have been crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live, yet not I, but Christ who lives in me. The life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave Himself for me. Colossians 3 and verse 4, when Christ who is your life appears. Or as Jesus would say in Luke chapter 9, about verse 23 and 24, if anyone would come after me, if anyone would follow me, let him first take up his cross daily. It is a daily fight. It is a daily battle. It is a daily struggle to die to self and live for God. I'm going to go back to Romans chapter 7 for just a minute. Look at verse 25. After Paul asks, who is going to deliver me? He says, thanks be to God through our Lord Jesus Christ. See, when we choose to follow Christ, when we choose to put our life in His hands, when we choose to do what He wants us to do, we are fighting with God against ourselves. Let me challenge you. Let me challenge you to pick the winning side. Let me challenge you to choose God daily, starting today. Thank you. Look forward to the next time we're together.